Welcome back. I'm Robin with Vibrant Future, and we are on our last video here, number 4, and we're going to talk about some fears and misconceptions around business loans. I've met many business owners who just say loans are not, they're not for me. I don't like them. They're too risky, and that's certainly understandable. I was a business owner myself, and I was at the time averse to getting a business loan. But had I known what I know now, I would probably I would be much less averse. And so we'll go through in today's video um, addressing some of the common fears and misconceptions around loans. And just a reminder that this is the 4th video in a series of business loan basics that we've prepared. The first is Loans 101. Hopefully you've had a chance to see that. We've then talked about good loans and bad loans for your business. And then we talked about what it takes to get a loan and the timeline that gets a loan. So before we start on this video, just want to remind everybody that these videos are probably appropriate for anyone in the United States, but or any business in the United States, but they're prepared specifically for businesses located in Portland because we will be referencing resources and organizations here in Portland, as these videos are produced with the assistance of Prosper Portland to support local business growth here in the Portland area. So the first misconception that I hear from a lot of business owners is that if I get a loan, I'm going to lose everything. Is it possible? Yes. Is it likely? No. And I think the fear of the possible scares away a lot of people. So first and foremost, if you default on the loan, which is kind of the worst case scenario, lenders have multiple recovery options. They have the personal guarantee, they have collateral, they have other, you may have other conditions in your loans that they have, ways to recover their funds. So keep that in mind. They're not going to send you to jail. They're not going to force you to declare bankruptcy unless you play games, right? And we'll talk about it in a moment. Or I'll talk about it in the next bullet. Be honest and don't play games. If you're experiencing challenges, talk to the lender. Don't talk to someone in the call center. They don't understand. Talk to the person that you interacted with. Meet face to face with them, and be honest. And don't play games. The worst thing you can do is go AWOL. I've had borrowers where they stopped making their payments. They stopped returning your phone calls. They disappeared. We have no idea what happened. And we have no other recourse, and we had to go, pursue legal action, quickly, because we had no, idea what was going on. We had one client who sold the collateral that they pledged as they sold the equipment that they pledged as collateral, and that was in violation of the terms, and that's not a good situation. Don't play games. Work with them. Most lenders don't like doing the nasty stuff. Some do, particularly the bigger banks. But most lenders don't like to do the more nastier stuff. And if you work with them, they want to be a little bit flexible. And don't borrow more than you can afford to lose. If you really want to grow your business in a big way and say, I need $100,000, and that's a huge amount of money. And if you can't afford to lose $100,000, maybe not get $100,000, maybe $50,000. $50,000 is still a lot of money, but maybe that's an amount that you can work with. And pick your lenders carefully. In the last video, we talked about shopping for lenders, and every lender has a different approach for how they handle problem loans. They'll typically refer to them as special assets. It's a nice way of saying these are problem loans. When you're shopping around, ask them how they handle special assets. Not all lenders are the same. Some are more friendly, some are more cutthroat. The moment you're one day late on your payment, they're going to send you to legal or special assets, and you're dealing with lawyers or legal folks, and it's not necessarily a pleasant experience. Other lenders, they may be willing to be more flexible. And I know it's an awkward question to ask when you're shopping around, but it's a fair question. You have the right to ask that question and just say, I'm confident that I can repay the loan, but what happens if I default? And ask them to explain their approach. Um, if the lender, the loan broker, can't answer that question or is kind of giving you a vague answer, that's a red flag. They're trying to avoid the truth, or they don't know the answer, which is also bad. Um, but a lender might say, well, as long as you're in good communications with us, we can negotiate the payment terms, we can do a workout. Um, they will explain to you their philosophy and approach. So ask that question, and understand what may happen if the worst case scenario happens, and um, play that out. If they're going to say we're going to do X, Y, and Z, go back home and think about how X, Y, and Z might affect you and your business. Again, you're shopping around. Look for a lender that fits your needs and that you feel comfortable with. So I want to walk through an example of a default, just to kind of give you a sense of what may happen if you were to default a loan. So let's say you were getting a loan, equipment loan for $50,000, and it's for 5 years. So you have 5 years to repay the loan. You pledge the equipment, the piece of equipment that you're buying as collateral, and you're also, as required, offered a personal guarantee. And so the scenario is, 3 years into the loan, business doesn't go as well as you expected it to be. You default, and you have still have a $30,000 loan balance. What this is a possible lender recovery would be, they would collect the collateral that you pledged. Now, it's not worth $50,000. It's already 3 years old, but it still has value. So they would sell that collateral at auction, and let's say they get $24,000 from that. So they would apply that $24,000 to your outstanding balance, and you have $6,000 left due. And that's where a personal guarantee might kick in. And they could demand that, hey, pay $6,000 right now. But if they're reasonable, maybe they may work out a payment plan and just say, hey, how about $250 a month for the next 24 months? And that's not from the business, that's from you personally or from your household. So maybe you have a partner that's earning some income, and their income can be used to repay the loan. And all of a sudden now, it's doable, right? $250 a month. Yes, it sucks, right? And it's unfortunate but it's still very manageable. $250 for 2 years. So that's an example, and I would encourage you, as you're considering loans, to think about an example, and see how it might play out for you. And better yet, talk to your lender and say, how if I defaulted 3 years in, how might this work out? And a good lender is going to be able to give you some guidance along the lines. So that's why I said earlier, are you going to lose everything? Probably not. It could happen, especially if you play games. But in this scenario, the ramifications is not the worst thing in the world. Another thing that a lot of business owners will say is that everyone says loans are bad. First off, I would again refer you to that earlier video where we talked about good loans and bad loans. There are some really good reasons to get a loan and some bad reasons to get a loan. So think about why you're getting a loan. And I also want to acknowledge that some loans ended up being, very detrimental for the borrower. But you're probably only hearing one side, their side of the story, and understand that it takes two to have a bad relationship. Maybe they did something that didn't help their cause. Maybe they were playing games. So just be mindful. You'll never hear the other side of the story. but just be mindful that, you're only probably hearing, one side of the story. I also want to acknowledge that there are kind of cultural, aversions to loans. Um, Certain populations, certain demographics, whether it's because of history, whether it's because of culture, or both, there are, natural aversions to loans. You look at myself, I'm Asian, um, and back in, China, where my family's from. Capital, back in the day, not the case anymore, was often arranged between family members. You rarely involved third-party members, and they weren't really called loans, right? Uh, and even though you were kind of borrowing, money from them, but it was more of a family honor agreement that was behind all that. And so, you now taking someone who, was raised in that environment, you've come here to the United States where personal loans like that aren't that common, that they happen, but they're not as common. And it's more common for you to get loans from a formal kind of third party like a bank. So that's a very natural aversion. It's just a system that was, in one culture is not here in the United States. Is it right? Is it wrong? That doesn't matter. It's just, it's an aversion. And I can also guarantee you that, there are also definitely other strings attached when you have these personal loans between family, that, I've heard that are also challenging. So just understand that there's different cultural norms. Then there's another situation. You look at, the redlining that happened to, Black citizens, here in Portland and, in many areas around the United States. They were disparaged. They were discriminated against by major financial institutions. And so there is decades, centuries of mistrust with, financial institutions, and many, business owners, Black business owners that I've worked with, they don't want to do business with banks because they're afraid of what they've done to their ancestry, and they don't want that repeated on them. And that's a very logical reason. So understand that, there are different reasons why different populations, or people have aversions to loans. Um, and I would always encourage you, if you feel that way, um, uh, talk to folks, talk to lenders, particularly community lenders. A lot of the community lenders, they're designed to address some of those concerns that I just raised. They design their loan programs, they staff their organizations, they build into their mission statements things to address, some of the historical or cultural issues with borrowing or lending money. So have those conversations. Um, Loans are a sign of weakness. Again, look at that video, good loans and bad loans. If you're getting a loan because you're not generating some sufficient profits, maybe that's a sign of weakness. Um, but if you're getting a loan because you see an opportunity to grow your business, that you continue the trajectory that you're on, um, it's not a sign of weakness. I see it as a sign of opportunity. And there's really nothing wrong with needing outside capital. You look at some studies, over 70% of all businesses have some type of debt on their balance sheet. That includes Apple Computer, number one, or I don't know number one anymore, but it's a big company. Their valuation in the stock market is over $1 trillion. But you look at the balance sheet; they have over $100 billion in debt, and they do that for many different reasons than why a small business owner may need it. But it's not a sign of weakness. And I would also offer that 95% of the businesses that do have investments, outside capital in their business, that capital is in the form of debt. These are businesses that are getting loans. The vast majority of outside capital in a business is in the form of debt or a loan. Very little of it is in the form of venture capital. So it's not a sign of weakness, only if you're getting a loan because you're not making money and you're not willing to address some of the challenges that are inherent in your business, which every business has its challenges, but if you're not willing to address it, then maybe it's a sign of weakness. I don't trust lenders. And this comes from many different ways. Yes, there are some bad apples out there, but that's a blanket statement. And understand that there are many different types of lenders. And so when you're shopping around, get to know them, ask them questions, develop a relationship with them. And not only when you need the money, but if one day you might need the money, start developing some relationships a year or two in advance, and just go to a banker and say, hey, I have a business, it's growing. I think I need capital in a few years, and I would just like to stay apprised of, what offerings you may have. They would be more than happy to put you on their mailing list, give you a phone call. A good lender will give you a phone call every once in a while just to check in on you, or maybe invite you to opportunities. They may have seminars or resources or events to help you grow your business. So, takes two to build trust. And I would say go out there, start extending your olive branch to build that trust. And not all of them will take it, but a few of them will. And those are the people that you work with. Another approach that I hear is my strategy is to get grants. And grants are fantastic because it's free money, right? Some organizations, some government agency is offering money. They're not requiring you to pay any money back. So it's best, right? And no doubt getting a grant is fantastic. But realize for most of you, that day will never come. It's like saying, I'm going to finance my money by investing in Powerball. Someone listening to this video might get a Powerball, and they can invest. They have plenty of capital and more. They don't probably will close down their business. But how likely is it that you're going to get that grant, that Powerball? And the same thing is true for grants. They are very competitive. There are not that many out there. Those that are out there, they're there for a very specific purpose. Maybe you're eligible for a grant only if you open a business in a certain neighborhood or in a certain industry or have certain circumstances that you're offering. If you don't meet that criteria, you're not going to be eligible for the grant. I consider grants as a bonus, but not a strategy. If you're eligible for a grant, by all means, go for it, right? There's nothing better than free money. But that's not a growth strategy because, like I said, you can't rely on it, and it's too competitive. And really, to grow, you're going to need to accept some risk. And that's just a fact of life. And you're going to need to make yourself a little vulnerable. And I think that's the concern that a lot of people have with loans, because it's risk. It's you're making yourself vulnerable. But again, think of a child, a young child, a baby that's walking for the first time. If they start trying to walk, but they don't want to fall, I would argue that then they will never learn to walk. But that's just, humans are not designed that way. We're able to fall, and eventually you learn how to walk. And I think that's the same thing with a loan. I'm not saying you join a marathon the first day, but take small steps. Take a small loan. Take some baby steps, right? And if you fail, maybe it's not the end of the world, or you learn some lessons, from it, or you get more comfortable with it. I think loans are, could give you an opportunity to, take on some of that risk and really grow your business. And the last thing I'll say is that, if you're content with your business as is, meaning that you don't want to grow it, pursuing grants is great because it's bonus money. But if you need to grow your business, if you want to grow your business, you are going to fail at growing your business if your capital strategy is just for grants, for all the reasons that I mentioned earlier. So think about why you're in business, think about what your goals are, and I would encourage you to think about whether grants are a viable factor for you. So the last slide I have here is overcoming some of the fears that I mentioned. I already spoke to some of these already. Start small and build those muscles. Don't climb Mount Everest for the first time. Climb a curb. Take a small loan. Get used to it. Build those muscles. Then get a bigger loan. Build those muscles. And you'll learn a lot about yourself, your business, and eventually one day you might be able to climb Mount Everest. I had a client where, they had lots of challenges with their business, but they had tons of customers. And we worked on a plan. They wanted, $100,000 up front for working capital. It's like, no way. You don't even have accurate financial statements. And so, they made some changes, and we extended them a small loan, about $20,000, and that helped. They came back, a year later. Things got better. They got more business. They said they need more capital. So we gave them, another $25,000. So now they had, $50,000. And they repeated that a couple times, and eventually, over 4 years, we were able. Things got so good. They learned how to manage the capital. They developed the muscles inside their business, and we were able to extend to them a $250,000 line of credit, which is significantly more than $20,000. But in that process, they learned how to manage their finances much better. So take a small step, build those muscles, and develop that expertise in-house. Plan. Plan for worst case scenario, plan for best case scenario, but know your options, know what you're getting into. And by knowing your options and knowing and having a plan, you're mitigating your risk. You're understanding what you're acceptable, you can tolerate, what is not acceptable. Don't wait for the last minute. If you need a loan to make, purchase raw materials so that you can manufacture goods, for a sale that you're having in a month, it's too late. Give yourself ample time. Lenders have this innate sense of knowing when you're rushed for capital, and when you're rushed for capital, it sends, kind of red flags, or I should say maybe pink flags. They have the spidey sense that, alerts them something is not right. I don't know. I had it when I was lending. I didn't really take any classes or whatever, but it's just something that, lenders know. So give yourself time. I would also encourage you to seek guidance, talk to people. Here in Portland, we have, through the Inclusive Business Resource Network, capital advising, which I offer, that is available to help you, work through these various scenarios. As I said before, talk to lenders, get to know them, narrow your list down to ones that you're comfortable working with and that you trust. Highly encourage you to talk to peers, mentors, advisors. They can share their perspective, their lessons learned, and it's highly valuable. And sometimes you can say things to them that you may not want to say to a prospective lender. And then finally, just, choose your lender. I can't stress this enough. Not all our lenders are equal. Consider the non-bank lenders, like community lenders or, suppliers. They have different approaches. They have different ways of handling things, different relationships that they pursue their lending through. So definitely give them a consideration. That's it. We've gone through, hopefully you've had a chance to sit through all 4 videos. Hopefully, you've learned a bit from, these basic, these series of basic loan videos. So I thank you for joining me, and I would encourage you to stay tuned to this channel. We will have additional videos in the coming months on covering a bunch of topics. There's already a whole bunch of different topics there. Please, take advantage to learn about, business loans and figure out if they're right for you. Thank you.